Hey everyone, Dr. Jeff LaCure. Welcome to another episode of Bros Who Know, Irrefutably Authentic. And you know that it's not a Bros Who Know podcast without the Dark Knight, the Captain Crunch, the Count Chocula, the Will Smith of podcast, Richard Yancey. And you could tell just how comfortable Rich looks in the much smaller chair.
Cramped up.
And I feel like I'm like a 5-year-old in this chair, just kind of slumped down. I got to sit up a little bit. Hey, we got a special one for you. You know, Richard, I love talking with you about a lot of health-related issues. We have Tonelli here today, who has really, I think you're going to find a powerful story, and most importantly, a story that you'll be able to relate to on his journey, and quite frankly, his own weight loss journey. And to give you kind of just a little bit of a preview, in the same way that Rich and I met in the gym, I had the great pleasure of meeting with Al in the gym, and we just started striking up a conversation and talking about our own sort of training philosophies and so on. And two things that we found we had in common right away. We love the gym and we train as hard as we can, and two, we train as frequently as we can. And I think the X factor was we love how it feels. So you have three people here who really advocate health and fitness. And, you know, Rich and I have talked a lot with you about the epidemic, not the vid, the real epidemic of obesity and diabetes in this country, and how, you know, it's estimated now that over half of our country meets the criterion for obesity. And so Al, who's lean and mean, sitting there with you today, isn't lean and mean because he's sitting there today. He's lean and mean because he made a commitment to leanness and meanness. And we're going to have a chance to hear a little bit about Al's story, and hopefully it'll motivate and inspire you, because I will tell you, just in my brief conversations with Al, it's not an easy story. It's not I did this for 5 minutes and look at me now. Al was very intentional and very committed, and Rich and I talk with you about that all the time, that you need to be intentional and committed. And I love what Rich always says, you also got to be qualified. You have to be qualified in order to make important changes in your life. So Al, tell the viewers, tell us a little bit about your journey, and I guess you know, instead of starting at the beginning, maybe we'll start maybe in the middle. If you're okay sharing it, where would you say your top weight was? And then where are you now? And then tell us a little bit about your epiphany, your wake-up call when you said, you know what, it's time for me to have my body go in a different direction. So where were you at your peak?
My peak, well, it's kind of the questions you just asked kind of all meshed together.
I believe it.
It started in 2019. I got sick. I was walking into work one morning in Chinatown. I was doing a job in Boston. I was a Boston union carpenter. And what really happened was I didn't realize I had a complete heart block. In other words, the bottom half of my heart stopped working completely. So no blood was going to my brain. And I just collapsed on the sidewalk, and it was quite dramatic. Smashed my head, got 14 stitches.
Wow.
And then just a couple days later, I was in having surgery. That was really what started this. But prior to that, I was always pretty heavy. I was always 280. You know what I mean? That just kind of seemed like the weight my body wanted to cruise at, you know. And even my doctor's like, look, you know, you get dealt a hand of cards. You gotta play that hand. And your hand, unfortunately, you don't have any aces. This is the way you are. Mm-hmm. So you have to make changes, you know, if you want to change that. But those changes have to be forever. Mm-hmm. You know, there's no short term to this. These are changes that have to stay implemented and exercised all the time, mm-hmm. which I'm totally okay with now. I was able to manipulate it and make it in such a way that I can maintain what I'm doing comfortably and happy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm not deprived at all. Mm-hmm. You know, matter of fact, I eat more. I went out to dinner on Friday night, for example. I had chicken, veal parmesan. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not suffering.
Yep.
So that's really what started it. So in 2019. They deemed me disabled. Mm-hmm. So I gave up my union job, and other things happened. And going to work for me was like going to the gym. Mm-hmm. I'd show up. Sometimes we'd have deliveries. We'd have deliveries 3 days a week. So 3 days a week, I'd get up at 3:30 in the morning. We'd be on the job for 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we'd unload an 18-wheeler truck that was loaded with cabinets, commercial millwork, like we installed the desk at the New England Aquarium, that type of stuff. You know, that's what I did in the city. And then we did all the high-rises there, and we did all the residential high-rises. So we'd install kitchens and baseboard and vanities, and we have to unload all that material into the building, and that's what we physically did. And that was, so my job was huge physical, really physical. And I still maintain that 280. You know what I mean? I couldn't, sometimes I get down to 275, back up, 10 pounds fluctuation. But that was gone. I didn't change anything, I just wasn't working anymore. So all of a sudden, it was like, I'm like, oh, geez, these aren't fitting that good. And that just continued. That pattern continued for about 2.5 years. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, they think it may have contributed to what's happening with my heart, because when I first got the pacemaker and put in, it was only pacing at about 24% of the time. In other words, 24% of the time, this would kick on and help me beat. Now it's 100.
Wow.
It's at 100% now, and still is, unfortunately. So I don't know if I beat myself up more by gaining all that extra weight, because I ended up getting to a mass weight. My heaviest weight was 354 pounds.
And how tall are you, Al?
5'11".
Okay.
Yeah, 5'11".
Yep.
5'10" 3/4. Anyways, so yeah, 354 pounds, and it was brutal. But you don't.
So you were sick first.
I was sick first.
And then after you recovered, you still gained weight, is what you were saying.
I gained a ton of weight. Yeah,
Okay.
The pacemaker was in. I was home. I wasn't working anymore, and that's when the problem
Now, did you have
began.
any other? Did you smoke? Did
No,
you
I
do
didn't
anything?
smoke.
Drink?
Not really.
Do you have diabetes or anything
No,
like that?
not at all.
No. Okay.
No, they don't know what
History of
caused it.
heart disease?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Sounds like my cardiologist.
Well,
Yeah.
we just wanted to, so people could see,
Yeah,
that
no, I
you
hear
can
ya.
you can have, you might not have these comorbidities, right?
Yeah, right.
And these things can still happen. So,
You bet they can. You're absolutely right about that. And yeah, I had none. I had no
so it was just
symptoms.
your was your eating habits then.
At this point now, it really wasn't even that. Well, yeah, it was. Absolutely. At this point now, after about a year, I started eating for comfort, and late at night, and it was...
It's depressing. You
It
must have
was
been-
depressing.
How was
And
your
now-
mental health at that point?
Brutal. It was brutal. Yeah, I wasn't me. People even said he's changed so much.
What'd you notice, Al? And the reason I ask, and I'm glad Richie's asking that,
Sure.
is we find, and when I say we, I always take the psychological route,
No,
right?
that's
Looking
fine.
at the research, that the majority of people who have had those moments of gross obesity, and I don't mean gross like it's gross, but we're talking about the size.
Sure.
There's a lot of emotions under it.
Yeah.
And you had a major, major health scare.
Yeah.
Stopped doing what you loved, and then Richie picked up on it, like, okay, tell us about the emotions. What were you experiencing that allowed you to go up maybe almost another 70 pounds?
Depression, really,
Yeah.
because it's like my whole career got ripped out, and it's the way it happened. It was fast.
As a young man.
As a young man, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm only 57 years old, so it's like I got a lot of work left in me. Still do, I feel like, on some level, but unfortunately it's different now, but that's fine. I made friends with it. But yeah, I was very depressed because I missed everybody. As much as you wouldn't think I would miss the routine, I did. I didn't at first. I'm not going to lie. The first 6 weeks, I'm like, wow, this is my life now. Sweet. But no. And then all of a sudden, really what happened was, it's almost like you lose your self-worth. Like, I get emotional.
It's a tough one. That's
Yeah.
when you're that's that's
It
that's
was
even
tough.
that's even with people who are on drugs or anything. Once you hit that bottom, right, you only have two choices. You can either give up and pass away, or you can do something like what you did.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, listen, today I'm telling you, you look like a superstar, Captain.
Yeah. It's just, I try not to let it, because sometimes I think about it, because when I start talking about it, it brings me back.
Right.
Brings you
And then
back
I get
to,
upset, just
to-
where I was mentally. And,
Yeah.
I can't believe that and it's not that I allowed myself to get there. I didn't know what to
That's
do.
right. That's right.
So,
Well, are you married? So are you married?
Yeah.
So do you have kids?
Yes, I have 3 daughters.
Okay, so that's good. So they must
Yeah.
have helped you out a lot.
Oh yeah. No, it was cool. It was good. They were all supportive. Family's great. I just, again, it was so abrupt.
Right.
It's how it happened.
Yep.
Is that really was what blew up here.
Absolutely.
And guys would call, "Hey, you all right?" And I'm like, no, I'm not all right. And I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And again, in the beginning it was good, and then it wasn't good. I mean, it was really not good.
How was your mental state before all this happened? Like when you
Pretty happy-go-lucky. Nose to the grindstone, paying bills, going
Well,
to work.
were you-
Pretty. I was like at an 8, pretty happy.
Yep.
how'd you feel about the way you looked?
I never felt good about my weight, but I just kind of
Right.
pushed it aside. You know what I mean? I never.
So why do you think that you were that heavy prior to the cardiac event?
I'm not sure. I think probably my eating habits and portion control, I would have to say, and zero exercise beyond what I was doing.
Yep.
Here's the other thing too. When you're doing that job every day, you get acclimated to it. Just like lifting weights. If you don't change things up, nothing's going to happen.
That's right.
Same scenario would work. So in the latter, like the last parts of the last few years, I was actually a boss. I was running work. I was a foreman, and we had, sometimes I'd have as many as 12 people working for me, 20 people working for me on pretty sizable jobs, So that was more stress, and that it was like, is it lunchtime? That
Right.
sort of thing, and
Yep.
get home and I'd snack, probably 3 times before we ate dinner, and then we'd have dinner, and then after dinner, about an hour, snack again. I'd go to bed. I had a drawer full of candy bars next to my bed. Hershey bars in my top drawer.
Well, so
It'd be
again-
nothing to sit there and eat a couple of those, watch a little YouTube and go to bed.
So just to go back, so you didn't have high cholesterol.
No, I did not.
You didn't have high blood pressure, as far as you know.
Yeah, I had high blood pressure. I definitely had that.
Now, were you on medication with high blood
Oh,
pressure?
I certainly was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Not high
you,
cholesterol, though.
you routinely went to go see your doctor every year.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, yep. Saw my primary care once a year, sure.
Wow. So that goes to show you that even when you because you were taking,
They would tell me, you've got to do something about your weight. I heard that. If I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard it,
Right.
But I didn't do anything about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It really, what it took was this catastrophic thing that happened. That's what it took, but not even right out of the gate it didn't take. Because I still, at that point, I'm thinking, oh, I'm invincible now. I've got a pacemaker. You can't kill me. I mean, you could, shock me
Yeah.
and I'd probably go down, but,
Yeah.
it's, even the nurse said, he's got a pacemaker. You'll never kill the son of a bitch. You know what I mean? She told that to my wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, in joking, of course, but,
And I do want to ask you another question.
Sure.
So this was in 2019. That was right when the epidemic started, right?
About a
COVID
year
COVID,
before.
yeah.
Yes, a year before. So that's prior to the vaccine, right?
Yes.
So prior to the vaccine. That was prior to you receiving the vaccine.
yeah, I didn't have one yet.
Okay. Did you have COVID though?
Never got COVID.
No, got COVID. Okay. All
Nope, never got COVID. My wife got it once. My oldest daughter got it once, and it was
Wow.
just like a bad cold.
Yeah.
It was really all it turned out to be.
The reason, and I'm glad Rich asked it, is we've done some podcasts on the safety of the vaccine and so on, and
Yeah.
we've done.
There's a lot of myocarditis.
Yeah,
even
we've
with-
talked a lot
with
about people who have just had heart ailments who didn't have heart ailments until.
a
So
lot of sudden death, actually.
yeah,
Well, my wife's in Iran, and she wishes none of us took the jab.
yeah,
Wow.
I
Absolutely.
got both of them and a booster, and so did my children.
Yeah.
And I wish I could take it all back.
absolutely.
But it is what it is. Everyone's healthy right now, so.
That's
That's
it.
good.
You know
So
what
did
I
you
mean?
get a quadruple bypass or what?
No. Just a pacemaker.
Oh, just a pacemaker. So,
yeah, pacemaker.
Right.
The wire. There's a wire to the heart.
so I thought you said you had a clogged artery.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. thought
No,
you
I
was
had,
clogged.
no, what you heard was, I had, block. They
Block.
call it block.
Okay.
They call it a block. And basically what happens is the top half of your heart speaks to like a junction box. She explained it to me in a construction kind of way.
I love it.
So this talks to that little box talks to the bottom half. So when this speeds up, this needs to keep up, and it tells that to tell it to keep up.
Okay.
So that's kind of basically how it works.
So
Yeah.
what causes that?
Well, the two things they definitely know of is one is sarcoiditis, which I didn't have. I was tested for it, and Lyme disease. They know that'll create heart block.
Wow.
So did you have?
I didn't have either of those.
That's awesome.
So what they said to me was, we don't really know beyond that why, but we can fix it.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
So it wasn't caused by you being obese then.
Well, no, I don't know if. Well, yeah, I don't know. And the other thing too is sleep apnea. can be a contributor to that as well. That's the other one.
And that's increased the
Yeah.
more that someone's
And I
weight is-
absolutely
Right.
had that. So
Yep.
they said that could have been part of it,
Yeah.
but I got on a PAP machine, and
Now, do they have a term for this? Is there a name for this?
for this,
the ailment that you had.
yeah, it's called heart block.
Heart block. Okay.
Heart block.
Okay, so this is good info for people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Al, let me ask you this, because it sounds like you had two wake-up calls.
Yeah.
You dropped, took 14 stitches. That was life-changing in itself, right? Because
Yeah.
you had to change your career and everything. And then the emotions of this life change, health and your career changing, kicked in. Appreciate you showing the vulnerability because, it's important. We got a lot of people out there who view
Yeah, I can't help
who-
it when I
who are-
talk about it. It's
who
just,
are reluctant to show that self.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you
I
doing that.
tried not to.
What was? No, I'm glad you did. But that's the shrink in me.
Yeah.
What was that second wake up call that got you from a point of feeling really down and really low? It still can bring you to emotion that you said, okay, I'm making some changes here beyond the fact that you went down. You had two wake up calls. You
Yeah.
had that 2019. When did the second one happen? When you said, that's it. I'm doing life differently now.
I think it happened. I would say definitely it happened when my wife and I went to New York City, and we went with her cousin. He used to live in New York City, and I had never been. So I always wanted to see the city, which I'll never go back again. Anyway, we went, and I had to buy all new clothes. That was the start of it. And I realized I was in a 52 to 54 waist. That's really big.
Yep.
Anyway. And then we're walking around the city, and we're in Times Square, and I'm like, sweating like a madman, out of breath, which again, all kind of relates back to this on some level. You know what I mean? But just carrying around that weight, and then my wife didn't really have a good time, and she's like, and she even said it. She goes, you know what? I hated this weekend, and I'm like, I felt responsible for that, and you know what? I was in some level. Because I kind of held them back, like, okay, well, we can drive to this place, or we won't walk there, we'll do this. And it just kind of, so I definitely threw a wrench in the works with just the way I was.
Yep.
And then when we got back from that, I had a routine appointment with my primary care doctor. And we went in there, and I looked at him, we're talking, and got emotional again. And I'm like, and she's like, I looked at her, I go, Christina, am I eligible for the sleeve? She goes, you are absolutely eligible for the sleeve with the heart issue, high blood pressure. I was on 3 different meds. You know what I mean? Again, no high cholesterol, nothing like just high blood pressure.
Explain the sleeve.
The sleeve, the gastric sleeve is when they'll go in, they cut all these little holes in you, they stick scopes and such in, and then the doctor looks at a screen and he goes into your stomach. And he cuts out a large portion of your stomach, pulls it out, and then he stitches that up.
Wow.
So my stomach went, just for example, a nice big long banana
Yeah.
to just a tiny little 1/3 of it.
Wow.
Not even a quarter even.
Wow.
In fact, it was so dramatic that I could eat 5 bites of food, and 4 bites even, and I couldn't eat anymore.
Wow.
Because my stomach was full.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, again, that's another whole story, but I asked her if that's something I was eligible for. Could I get it? Because, of course, insurance-wise, you couldn't do it.
Right.
If you didn't have insurance, you wouldn't be able to afford it.
That's
Right.
right.
So they went ahead and did it.
How recent was that, Al?
I had that last October.
So almost a year ago.
Yeah, almost
All
a year ago. Last October, I had the surgery, but they won't do it right out of the gate. You have to meet with a psychologist, a therapist, dietitian, nutritionist, the whole team, and they're wonderful people. They're miracle workers, really. And I met with them, and they said, "Okay, let's do it. Let's try it. However, you have to lose X amount of weight before we'll even consider
Right.
making the date for the surgery." So now I found myself in that position. I'm like, well, now what? I wasn't able to lose before. How am I going to do it now? Well, they must have thought of that, because then I got scheduled to see Dr. Estefan, and he prescribed me Wegovy, which is the miracle thing that everyone wants. Can't get it, unfortunately, right now. It's just so in demand. Well, I got it, and I lost 60 pounds before I went in for the surgery.
Wow.
And what type of, now that, is that almost like,
It's an injection,
right,
a weekly injection. So what you do is you get the injections, you get your first month, and it's once a week. You take it at the same time, on the same day, in a different injection site. And then that's one dose, 0.6.
Now that curves your appetite, right?
Sure did.
Okay, that's what.
Like
a lot of people do.
wowzers.
A lot of the superstars are doing that now.
Yeah, it's
It's like the
tremendous.
Ozempic or
Yeah,
something.
Ozempic.
it takes.
Ozempic.
Ozembic's a
Exactly.
big one.
Yeah.
Saxenda is a
Right,
big
right,
one.
right.
Okay.
Are you still taking that now?
Actually, that's towards the end of the story. I am right now. I'm currently.
Okay.
Yeah, because and again, that's part of it. That part of the story. So, anyways, and then you graduate over a 7-week period to the biggest dose, and then you continue to take that dose until you reach your goal. You know, it's not a sure thing. Some people do really well with it. Some people don't, because you can't just take it and be like, okay, I'm all set.
Right.
You know, it just doesn't work that way.
Right,
You've got to be
right,
committed.
Right.
You know, you really have to get in your own head, do a serious self-evaluation. Look at the hard things you don't want to look at, deal with them, make a commitment, make a decision, and then hit it.
What'd you come up with when you
I
said
came
when
up
you
with,
when you did that?
I decided that, you know, number one, I'm so overweight. Number two, I already have a bad heart. Number three, you know, I know my family's afraid that something's going to happen to me. I knew that was a fact, especially my daughter. Well, they all did, you know what I mean? And I just thought I could see the unhappiness with my wife. Not because the weight and stuff like that, but just the depression and how I was behaving was more the problem. You know, she's just like, if he doesn't change, something really dramatic's going to happen. And I'm a perfect candidate for that, you know what I mean? So that's kind of to answer that question.
Okay.
So I went in and had the surgery. Surgery went great. And then came out of the surgery, got home, and then you have to follow a really super strict regimen of how you eat. Soft textures of food, certain types of food, and you can't deviate from it. You really have to stick to this. It's time tested and it works as long as you stick to it. And you can't overeat anyways, because if you do, number one, you feel it.
Yeah, you feel sick.
You feel it in your stomach. You feel like, ooh, that doesn't feel very good, but you feel it up here. Like you can't, like you continue to swallow, but it's not going anywhere because there's nowhere for it to go.
Well, what's
Wow.
crazy is they said one of the side effects of what you're taking is paralysis of the stomach.
Wow.
A short amount of people are getting that, so it's good that you didn't.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen, but something else did.
So what happened?
Oh, it doesn't end there. I got home and basically it's I forget. I think it's 40 days out. You follow this regimen for 40 days on the textures, and you graduate to different textures within that 40 days. I reached my 40th day, which happened to be the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm like, and then I could go back to solid textures, you know, to eat. Like I could have a little bit of turkey if I wanted, you know what I mean, that sort of thing. But didn't feel very good. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Wasn't sure what it was, and so I prepared everything. We had like 18 people at the house. Thanksgiving morning, I went downstairs and agony pain all across my entire abdomen now, and reaching up under my, like in my rib cage, and it scared me because it wasn't familiar. It wasn't familiar. Much like the day I went down because of the heart. It was something I'd never felt before. When you feel something you've never felt before medically like that,
Yeah.
Go to
you're
the
like,
hospital. Yeah, you should go to the
you know what I
hospital.
mean? And that was like, you know, from PTSD from when this happened,
Right.
I had that feeling, and I'm like, oh my God, something's going on. Well, sure enough, I put the turkey in, went upstairs, didn't get out of bed till the next day. I couldn't. Next day at 5 o'clock, I woke up and I looked over at my wife. She was already up getting dressed, and we went right to Faulkner Hospital where I had the surgery. Turns out I had a leak.
You
I
could
had
have
a
been septic.
leak.
You could have went septic.
I was basically, he said I was on the threshold of that. You know, he said we were at the reversible point of that.
Yep.
But yeah, I was a week away, maybe
Yeah.
8 days away, 9 days away from having that happen
Yeah, you
and be
died.
dead.
Yeah, be
Wow.
dead, yeah.
You're
It's a
all
good thing
done.
You went in. So would you have like like you had a small tear?
They don't know. They may have been just soft tissue. I may have done it. I'm not really sure. Together we've talked about it a bunch of times, and we're just can't quite put our finger on really what it was, or what caused it. You know, because I still
So
was
how they
eating.
fix it?
Well, where do I begin with that one? They fixed it by, you know, diagnosing. Then I was on triple antibiotics in both arms, round the clock. I was in the hospital for almost 9 days. Wow. I had an internal drain. I had an external drain on the outside in a bag. That was the beginning. Then I had to go. Then they rushed me over to Brigham and Women's, where I had an endoscopy. I went in and looked, and that's when they installed the internal drain. I don't know what they did with the actual leak. I think by that point, it already had the MRI with contrast, which exposed it, tells you where it is. And then I went back and, geez, what else did they do? During the endoscopy, I think they may have put a couple of stitches where it was leaking, because in the video you could see clearly where the contrast was, and the leak was in the top of my esophagus.
Wow.
You know. And then it was just a regiment of all these different medications and pain meds, because it was brutal.
Had to be.
Yeah.
My entire abdomen, it was like I can't explain it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a pain beyond that I've ever had.
Well,
Yeah.
it was because of the operation, though.
It was because I caused the leak, or a leak was caused somehow.
How would you cause the leak?
I don't know how I did it, and they don't know how I did it.
Yeah, there's a-
You know what I mean? A lot of people have successful operations and go
Yeah.
on and be fine.
Right.
I'm his second leak out of 2011 patients
Well,
that he's
either
done
way,
this to.
you've been lucky, because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, the chances of you surviving a heart attack was what, maybe less than 50%.
I had a 50-50 to wake
Yeah,
up that day.
and then, I'm telling you now-
50-50, and
Yeah.
then this.
That's-
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
you're pretty-
You're like
I'm
a
just,
cat.
I
I'm
know,
so
jeez.
focused on health right now.
I bet.
So here's where I think your story is going to be different from a lot of other people.
Okay.
Usually, like a heart disease is something that we could almost kind of dodge, per se. Not all the time, but through eating,
Sure.
exercise, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? In your situation, it wasn't like that. I'm telling you, you didn't have any clogged arteries. Like
No.
you don't have heart disease per se,
Yep.
right? The traditional
I
heart, So this happened, was like almost like a fluke, right?
And it was quick.
So most people who
It's
are
over time.
overweight, they're usually depressed.
Okay.
Okay, and they have
Yeah.
some kind of eating disorder because they're depressed, and that's the way that they deal with their depression. You didn't seem like you had that either.
No.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying to you is that it's not your fault.
Right.
This could happen to anybody. So
Yeah.
it's not something that you can sit there and say, listen, had I done something different, then this outcome wouldn't
Yeah.
happen. And that's not in the situation that you're in. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think I'm just blown away by the chapters, right?
Oh, yes, unbelievable.
Of your story.
Yeah.
Again, all
You have a
the
chance
I
of
feel
winning
like
the-
it's old hat, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you had a better chance of, I'm telling you, probably equal chance of winning the Megabucks.
Yeah, I wish. That'd be great.
I'm telling you,
I did think that. I was thinking, Al, you might want to start playing the lottery. Right?
But
Where are you now? Because this was last fall, right? And it got bad. I mean,
Yeah, it
have
was
you been
around Thanksgiving?
everything medically is no more?
Right now, I'm
no more-
sound. Oh yeah, it's
No more side
unbelievable now.
effects. No more follow-up procedures.
I'm still in touch with my team.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they're constantly monitoring me, and the surgeon that performed the surgery, the guy was amazing. Absolutely amazing. He actually gave me his personal cell phone number, and I chat with him
Nice.
like once a month. We get on the horn on a Sunday, and
Excellent.
we'll have a conversation. And that's how invested he is in me doing well. You
So
know what I mean?
I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Because we talk about time all the time. on
We
the
sure
channel.
do.
I always say that, time is the most valuable asset on the planet.
You bet. In the
Okay.
water.
After all these events that happened to you, right, how do you value time now?
It's I don't know how to explain the preciousness of it, because and this is a funny thing that you just said that, because it's been really in the forefront of my thoughts, certainly in the last 6 months. And I've had this conversation with my wife, and I'd be like, Catherine, remember when people say don't wish it away?
Yeah.
Don't wish it away. Well, now I have a daughter. A sophomore in college. I have one graduating this year, and I've got one going into her sophomore year. And I may not have been there for any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, time is. I can't find the word to set the impact how important time is.
All right, so then let me ask, so that leads me to the second question.
Mhm.
Imagine before this all happened, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you take things a lot more serious now than you did back then? Now, do you think you appreciate everything more now than what you did before?
That is an excellent question, and absolutely, yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think that's the silver line. I think that's the gift that you.
That is the gift.
Yeah,
That's the gift.
yeah, it's a good question, and yeah, you absolutely do, because, you listen, if you don't have a near-death experience, you might not be put mentally into to reach that mentally where you can say,
That's
oh my
right.
God, you
That's
know?
right.
Like, I'll give you an example. I have mountain bikes now, never had them before.
Mhm.
And now I go mountain bike with my daughter. That's precious.
Yeah.
Right,
You can't, that's the good stuff in life.
right.
You know, And there's other things with Gabrielle and with Anna and, absolutely. I completely appreciate where I am, certainly where I live and my family, and I can say that I landed on my feet, and because my mindset's where it is, it kind of swept through the house. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know
Like
exactly
they
what you mean.
appreciate that now, and they're like, oh, geez, who's this dad? The other dad works 60 hours a week, get up 3:30 in the morning, come home, eat, get his snacks, and go to bed.
Yep.
And that's truly what it was like. Hey guys, how was school? All right, peace out.
Yep. And
You're
now,
living now. Yeah, you're living now.
Yeah.
You're living
Now I'm loving it. Now people say all the time, geez, do you ever think about going back? Well, no. First of all, I'm disabled. They disabled me. So I'm not going back. And I also have to, I still have to watch out what I'm doing. I can't overexert because this stuff can go into high gear. Matter of fact, I had a phone call about 6 months ago from my cardiologist. Not his office, not his secretary. Dr. Love called me. Hey, it's Dr. Love. I'm like,
that's their name?
his name.
His name,
Oh,
wow.
I love
Dr.
that.
Love,
Dr.
yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy too.
I got to change my name.
So what'd he say?
He said, what you doing?
Oh, they can see it.
They monitor it. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
they have
Wow.
a machine.
That's crazy. Huh?
Yeah, it is.
Technology. Huh?
You have this. When I go to bed every night, there's a machine next to my bed plugged into like a modem. And it reads everything that happened during the day. It goes into that little computer and gets sent to Framingham Heart Study, of the
Yeah.
Framingham Heart Center.
Yeah.
Which is Tufts, actually.
That's
It's
amazing.
Tufts now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
State of the
So,
art.
and then they come in and they can see any red flags.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a red flag.
What was it?
They haven't quite put their finger on it. I went through a series of tests in the last 5 months. In fact, my most recent one was a lung test. They found something in the bottom of my left lung. So I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus, here we go again. Am I going to dodge this bullet? Well, it ended up just being like a gelatin, something that was transparent that actually is no longer there.
Oh, good.
I went for a nuclear stress test. I had to go to Mass General in Waltham because in the New England corridor, there's only this one machine that can read your heart in real time. And I had to have that test done. And even still, it was somewhat inconclusive.
Wow.
But the heart stuff cleared up. The lungs are clear as a bell, which kind of shocks me with what I did for so long and the stuff that I breathed for so long.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate on that one. But no, inconclusive as of right now. And I have a follow-up with him on the 28th of September.
Oh, good.
And we'll see what happens. But there's been no red flags, and he said, we'll continue your exercise, and we'll we'll
So
keep an eye.
How's your mental state now?
Bliss. I don't know how to explain it. I'm very rarely upset these days. When I do get upset, just something stupid.
Right.
But I don't. I'm pretty relaxed.
That's good.
Because
So I tell you funny stories. I didn't know. So Jeff told me that I was going to meet with you.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously I didn't know what you looked like.
Mhm.
And he told me that you were a beast at one point in your life.
Mhm.
Right. So, and this is I come in here and I see you. I didn't even think you were the last person I thought that was going to be sitting in that chair. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's how I'm telling you. You whatever you're doing, just you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think you're sending a positive message to everyone that's
100%.
watching.
100%.
You know what I mean? And it's the bottom line is that all of us, we have to take responsibility of our lives.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you can't complain. You know what I mean? So,
Very true.
So I think that's that's a very important lesson.
Absolutely. As we begin to wind down, it goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I bet you feel like you just sat in a chair.
I do, actually.
We definitely want to thank you. And to everybody watching, Al has a wonderful message for you that he's already articulated and been very articulate. But I'm going to sort of summarize it, which is sometimes as people, we get moved to tears, which allows us to move. It allows us to change, and it allows us to grow. And Al took what could have been seen as tragic. I'm still stuck on 14 stitches, let alone everything else. I can only imagine, right? And did something, was proactive, not just reactive. And folks, Rich and I try to bring you a lot of diverse content about making important changes and choices in your lives. And today we were really blessed to have Al sitting here with us. And again, I introduced Al as being intentional and motivated. And if you notice, you see him smile a lot as he talks about today, and with a lot of optimism and hope about tomorrow, and was very and continues to be very intentional with his own health. Rich and I ask you all to look in the mirror and just ask yourself, you know the honest answer. You know the honest answer. Are you being intentional with your own health? Some of us aren't as fortunate. I'm going to say Al's fortunate. Some of us aren't as fortunate as Al. When that wake-up call arrives, we don't recover. And Al recovered and is thriving in mountain biking. And I've watched him train in the gym. The guy's an animal. He's getting after it.
You can tell. Look at him.
He takes it serious. But again, it's about being intentional. So Al, on behalf of Rich and I, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're more than welcome.
It's been a real pleasure. And speaking of real pleasure, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our producer extraordinaire, Michelle Hebshe,
come out here, Michelle,
has decided to go on to a different studio because it's more convenient, and we get it. But we want to bring Michelle on camera, as this will be her last day with us. There she is, folks. There she is, the producer extraordinaire. No bros with no wake-up call without her. So Michelle, thank you. So we'll high five you. Thank you so much for all you did.
High five.
Absolutely.
Good luck in your new career.
I know, we're sad about this. This is not, we're very upset about
Very
this.
sad. So on behalf of Michelle, on behalf of Al, I'm Dr. Jeff LaCure. This is Richard the Big Dog Yancey, and we are bros who know. Irrefutably authentic. Until next week, we'll see you then.